you're doing a podcast, so I'm assuming your experience has been good with us. Here's Teresa. If I ask you we can edit that out. So how's your experience been with Gaddis Premier? Well, actually, we got something we need to talk about. It's like, well,
it's good.
Okay, cut it down. My name is Derek Hines, and I am a partner here at Gaddis Premier Wealth Advisors. And Tony, I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name before I introduced you, but here we have Tony with us, and Tony's with Denison Development Alliance, and he's been there for 23 years.
Yes, sir. It's pronounced Kaai.
Kaai. Well, that's
Hawaiian name.
Okay.
Born in Oklahoma. Born in Ada.
Yeah, born in Ada. But how'd you get a Hawaiian name?
My mother went to the West Coast, and my dad was in the Navy, and they met there, and here I come.
Yeah. Yeah, Hawaiian name.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, you don't resemble like Hawaiian native.
He was Hawaiian. He was he was 50% Hawaiian, and so I'm quarter. But my mother was a fairly tall woman.
Yeah.
So I guess I got that. It's been good. It's been fun. A lot of people I've worked at different places, and they get information on me, Tony Kaai, and they're like, oh, it's probably a small Asian guy. And I'm not.
No. That's funny. So you were born in Ada.
Yes, sir.
And you grew up in Van Nuys.
I graduated from Van Nuys.
Okay. How'd you get from Ada to there?
Well, I was born in Ada, but I grew up in Stonewall.
Oh, okay.
And then when I was a sophomore, I moved over to Van Nuys, and I graduated from Van Nuys.
Okay.
It was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, small town. So that's all over where we have an office in Ada.
Oh yeah.
So we're all over.
Ada's great.
Oklahoma.
Ada's great.
Yeah. Well, what took you? I know, we had a little conversation before this, but you went to OSU.
Yes, sir.
Graduated with a degree in agronomy.
That's right.
And now you're in economic development.
Correct.
That seems like a little bit of a jump.
That's a big jump. Agronomy is the study of field crops and soil.
Uh-huh.
And I got connected with the state office of the USDA in Stillwater.
Yes.
So they hired me as a summer trainee. So I spent 3 summers training different field offices around the state. And then when I graduated, I had a job. They sent me to Medill, worked there for a year. Then I went to Oklahoma City and was working there at the state office. And everything was great. And then my hometown congressman, Wes Watkins, created a program called Red Arc Development Authority. So I left the government and that branch of government, and went to work for the congressman. And we were headquartered in McAllister. And he was mimicking programs in the country that support rural communities.
Yeah.
The 21 counties in southeast Oklahoma were the highest unemployment, highest poverty in the state of Oklahoma, and that was his district.
Yeah.
And he was a phenomenal representative for the state of Oklahoma. So I jumped ship and went to work for him, and there was 4 of us. I did natural resource development, which was, we built a small catfish farming operation in Holdenville, and then we were out in the field helping farmers transition from whatever they're doing into growing catfish.
Yeah.
And we provided a market because we built the plant in Holdenville to take that fish.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we did a vegetable processing project in Atoka and had a marketplace there. And then we had another gentleman that worked for us that was out in the field working with farmers to start doing vegetables.
Yeah, so commercially farming.
Yes.
So what kind of vegetables?
There was okra was the fun one because...
Yeah, that would be hard to commercially farm.
Well, it's not that hard. It grows quick. It's easy to grow, but you have to harvest it at 3 inches.
Yes.
And we told all the farmers that.
And you have to hand harvest it too, right? You can't run a machine over it.
Right. So you can't be bringing in sick. Well, it took a long. Well, it didn't work. I'll just put it that way. Yeah. They couldn't stay that focused on cutting it at 3 inches.
Yeah. Yes.
But that was fun. And then Wes funded a multi-million-dollar research center over in Lane, Oklahoma, for the support of the technical aspects of growing vegetables in Southeast Oklahoma. So he had a lot of vision. He did a lot of work, and I learned a lot. But on that staff, he also had a gentleman that was an economic developer.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of caught on to what it was all about, but I really didn't have any training in it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fascinating. So my wife and I live on a little farm. Yeah, I grew up on a farm just right outside of Stillwater, outside of
Perkins?
No, other side, Perry.
Oh, yeah. Some of my best buddies from Perry.
Oh, really?
Wrestlers.
Yeah, who's that?
Mark Kirk.
Okay.
Wade Brorson. I graduated in 79.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely know the Brorsons. Yeah.
They're big farmers up there.
They are.
Super good people.
Yep. So their farm's a little further north of Perry. Ours is in between Perry and Stillwater.
Yeah.
Kind of out by Lake McMurtry. And we were more cow-calf. You know, my grandparents, one of my sets of grandparents, they did a little wheat farming, but
right on.
You know, mostly cow-calf type stuff. And yeah.
That's fun. We ran about 70 head, kind of a hobby farm.
Yep.
Enough for the boys to have something to do.
Yes. That's
school, after school.
That's pretty close to what we were doing. We did showed some cattle and
sure did.
You got to feed them twice a day and
all of that.
Yes,
it was good.
Yeah, I have a lot of good stories about trying to break calves to lead. That was always a wild time.
You hook them to a tractor.
Exactly. It took us a couple years to figure that one out.
I had one that was brutal.
Yeah,
you couldn't. I did hook him to a tractor. And
yeah. Oh yeah.
Day,
yeah.
He finally kind of got broke.
Yeah, we had a little bar on the back of the tractor you time to, and just take it
slow.
Take it slow. So you missed vegetable farming. So my brother-in-law actually has a farm just right outside on 70.
Oh.
So commercially farming vegetables is a challenge.
It is. I'm an agronomist, and that's not a horticulturist.
Yeah.
And so I was involved in that to some degree, but we had a guy that really knew what he was doing. So
yeah, I'm sure. My brother-in-law's name is Evan Rowland. I'm sure he's read any sort of research that was produced about
he should
farming in this area, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff.
And we had a lot of good farmland on the Red River.
Yes,
Oklahoma side. So it was very suited for that, but it's a whole different management than cow-calf.
Exactly.
Wheat farm.
Yeah, it's every day.
Alfalfa. Yeah, you got to be on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that took you to Muskogee.
Well, when Congressman Watkins ran for governor, and he was beaten in the closest governor race in the history to that point. So, he left Congress to do that, and so we kind of broke up, and I had a connection, and so I ended up going to Cushing, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And became the president/economic developer for Cushing.
Okay.
And the day I walked into the chamber of Cushing was the first time in my life I'd ever walked into a chamber office. Farm, we're not going to the chamber.
Yeah.
But it was a great fit for me, and stayed there 3 years, and then I went to Muskogee. Was there about 9 years.
Yeah. In Cushing, were you part of the chamber?
I was chamber president.
Okay.
/economic development.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the way Denison is built, but I'm sure, is it separate in Denison?
It's separate. I did a survey when I was in Muskogee because they wanted me to take over the chamber at the same time. So we did a pretty extensive survey, and it looked like it, if I recall it correctly, it's about 50-50 split. The communities had the chamber still doing economic development,
yes, or
cities splitting them off and being a separate entity.
Yeah.
A chamber in Denison did economic development until Denison passed a sales tax, a half-cent sales tax, dedicated economic development in 96. And when that happened, it became basically a city entity.
Yeah.
And so split off, and I was actually in the chamber office in Denison when I first moved down there, and I'm just next door now because we just needed more privacy and our own space.
Yeah.
So it's been, chamber's great, good partners.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you? I'm curious. So you started in Cushing, and then you moved to Denison. So did you go straight from
Muskogee.
Muskogee to Cushing?
I went to Cushing,
Muskogee,
and then Denison.
and then Denison. Okay. And in Muskogee, you were with Red Arc Development?
No, I was in McAllister. That's
Okay. All right. That's why I was getting confused. So
Yeah.
McAllister, Cushing, Muskogee.
Yeah.
And what'd you do in Muskogee?
straight up economics.
Straight economic development. Okay. And was it split from the chamber or was it
Right.
combined?
It was split.
Split. So how do you? I'm curious. Sort of where I'm going with this. Is
Okay.
I kind of thought about this before our conversation. You know, how do you manage just all? So with economic development, I'm sure there's a lot of what's a good word for this? Different contingencies, different people that you partnership with. Like how do you manage all that in economic development?
Well, you have to be a people person.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really love people, and you've got to connect and network and build your credibility that you know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then just keep pitching.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody the other day to do a deal, 28,000 square foot metal fab company
Mm-hmm.
on 5 acres of land. To get that deal done, you're gonna involve probably 40 to 50 people.
Wow.
County commissioners, somewhat the chamber, definitely the city, public works department, college. We have junior college,
Mm-hmm.
workforce development, all the players, utilities.
Yeah.
You got to have them all.
Yeah.
But the only thing people on the streets see is, there's a new industry that just happened.
Exactly.
I saw it in the paper. Okay.
Yeah, they just had to buy some land and put up a building and start a business.
And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Hardly. No business of any significance these days comes into community without going through economic development or a chamber or something. They just don't come in and go, I just bought 10 acres. I'm going to build this bill. Because they know there's incentives and there's support that they need
Yes.
from the overall structure. And that's just what's evolved into. It wasn't that way forever.
Yeah.
I got in the business in 88, and a lot of cities didn't have full-time economic developers.
Yeah.
They had the chamber, and the chamber staff kind of took it over. But as the profession became really specialized,
Yep.
then they started splitting off.
Yeah. And how important is that to the health of the city?
It's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to have growth if you don't have a real active economic development program.
Mm-hmm.
It's very competitive. I mean, there's 15,000 locations in the United States that a company could possibly go to. Now, typically, they'll narrow down their search to a region of the country, or sometimes they'll get real specific and they want to be in Oklahoma for whatever reason, or they want to be in Texas.
Is that based off like existing infrastructure?
It's based off of, a lot of times it's the natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
You have Cardinal Glass that we worked with Cardinal Glass. It's between us and Sherman and Durant.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in this region because of the sand, specialized sand.
Coleman.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, great company that ended up in Durant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very competitive, and we'll work 50, 60, 100 projects, and you might get one. That's how competitive it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds about right. I mean, from my experience in business and industry, I mean, if you're getting 10% consistently, you're doing okay.
Yeah. It might work a deal for a year or 2 years, and then they decide, we're not going to do the deal. I've worked several of those that, we're gonna move, or we're gonna relocate. You go through the process, and then, a new CEO comes on board. Like, we're just gonna stay where we are.
Yeah.
You just close the file, work on the next.
Yeah.
That's just the life of economic development.
Yeah. Well, how is, so I had a question, but it slipped my mind there for a second. So do you approach people, or do you wait for people to approach you?
We approach people through different marketing methods. You can do direct mail. We do call trips to California. It's a pretty hot target.
Okay.
You can advertise in magazines. Now there's a lot of AI stuff going on now, and we're transitioning into capturing that which has been interesting in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got programs now that could call you, have a conversation with you, and then once you say, yeah, I'd like to have more information, they say, well, you need to call Tony Kaai. They can make the voice, the dialect, whatever you want.
Wow.
Just give them a list of names and the call will start going. We didn't do that. We're doing a program that's, we're targeting technology companies because of TI and Global Wafers.
Yep.
So you can take Instagram, and anybody that's on Instagram that has the word semiconductor in somewhere in their profile, they'll go pick all those out, send an email to connect. So that's what we're doing right now.
And I'm sure you can pick, like, you can probably dial down into the size of the company, number of employees,
right,
square footage needs, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. So how's it been? I mean, you've been in Denison for 23 years, so you've seen incredible growth.
We have. And really the biggest jump has been just before COVID and then right after COVID from a population standpoint.
Yeah.
2020, we were about 24,000. And now we're estimating, based on water meter hookups and other programs that kind of give us some measurement, we're saying we're around 29,000.
Okay.
So that's a big jump.
Well, and then what's projected growth?
Well, we have a big project, Preston Harbor.
Yep.
3,100 acres, and they're going to do somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 homes of different
My goodness.
sizes and styles.
And is that to account for the TI project?
No.
Or
No, I'm sure that helped that project. We'd actually been working with that developer for 24 years.
wow.
And the property was all set up, entitled, if you will, all zoning and all that was done, but that took a long time, a lot of work with the Corps and federal government. But we got that done in 2015, and it's just been on the market since then. But really, again, I haven't seen any interest until right after COVID. Within about a 45-day period, we had 4 companies that came to my office and said, hey, we're looking, it's a great area of the country. We're looking to do something. What do you have? And I said, well, I got 50 acres here, 200 acres over here. And then I'd laughingly say, and I got 3,100 acres out here on the lake. And they said, that's who I want to talk to. 4 in about a 60-day period.
Wow.
And then, previous 20 years, no interest. And so anyway, Craig International out of McKinney is the one that finally took the deal down.
Yeah. That's incredible.
So they're supposed to have houses on the ground the first quarter of 27.
Okay. And how many houses are projected?
Well, anywhere between 7 and 10,000.
Oh my goodness.
And they'll be single family. They'll be age restricted. There'll be casitas. There'll be mansions. It'll be a total mixture of.
Yeah. What does age restricted mean?
If you're 65
Okay.
and over, 55 and over, typically no kids.
Yeah.
It's an adult neighborhood.
That makes sense.
Right. I'm in that category.
Yeah. I've got 3 kids, and I guarantee you
can't go there.
You don't want to be my neighbor. You may want to be my neighbor, but
right.
They're loud. I mean,
they got things to do.
You ain't kidding. There's going to be fireworks going off, not on 4th of July.
That's great. Good for you.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. We have 3 kids, 10, 8, and 6, daughter, boy. And, after we had our 3rd one, we have a lot of friends that have multiple children, 4 plus. And they say after you have 3, it doesn't really matter anymore. You can have as many as you want. And
Then
I don't believe them. I'm not willing to test that theory.
my nephew has 5. I don't know how you're doing that.
That's a lot of kids.
Somehow you get adjusted to it and you make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You just accept a level of chaos that you otherwise wouldn't have to.
Right.
It's kind of you go from, man-to-man defense to playing zone, and you just kind of figure it out.
Oh, they're all a blessing.
They are. They really are.
They'll take care of you someday. That's the plan.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an incredible project. I mean, 7,000 to 10,000 homes. I'm sure
Margaritaville is supposed to be on there too, in a large,
Yeah.
high-end marina, public access. Those are really the three components.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how much Lake Texoma changes in the next 10 to 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, that will change it.
Yes.
And there's other projects around. I know that there's stuff going up here by Roosevelt Bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That project.
Yep. And the Roosevelt Bridge will be,
I saw that.
new and updated. And not updated. I think they're just going to build a whole new bridge, but
I've tied up there and fished for sand bass a long time ago.
Yep. So you like to fish?
Yeah, that's my number one hobby.
Number one hobby?
Just bass fishing.
Yep.
My wife goes, we go.
Like sand bass or what? What's your favorite bass?
Just black bass.
Okay.
If we run across striper, we'll fish for them, but I don't go after them.
Yeah, I have to show you some pictures. We have a little farm pond.
Yeah.
And I've got my 8-year-old boy. He
Gotta have.
loves to fish.
He'll probably fish the rest of his life.
Yep. Yeah, we catch a lot of fish, and we've been trapping beaver.
Oh yeah,
So that's quite the adventure.
they can be a problem.
They are. They're very much a nuisance.
Good luck with that.
Thanks. I don't know if that'll be podcast friendly material, but so we talked about like the growth, the growth in Denison. Yeah, I think the TI project, is that Sherman?
Yeah, Sherman.
But obviously you guys are going to experience a lot of growth just by proximity.
Yeah. And the whole region. I mean, it's going to affect Durant.
Yeah.
It's going to have a big impact on everyone because that's just the start. Typically, a semiconductor plant, and now we got two, one that makes wafers and the other's going to make the chips. But that's the core, and then you'll have suppliers come in over time. And
Yeah.
so that's what we're targeting, and some of them could end up in Durant.
Yeah. So what are like the cascading impacts of, you said that's like the core, but like what, if that's the first domino that gets knocked over, what are the subsequent ones?
All the suppliers. And I'm just learning about the process, but there's these specialty gases. There's all kinds of product that I would have never thought, was part of a semiconductor plant, because it's very intriguing once you dig into it, which I never dug into it till then.
Yeah.
I didn't have a reason to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's big.
Yeah. So do you see, as an economy develops, I mean, what are the sort of the milestone moments for different communities? Does that make sense?
You mean when they're successful?
Yeah.
Well, I think, population growth is one. Your sales tax growth, your property tax income, all those economic factors are signs of good news from your community.
Yeah.
And that's how we measure it. Property tax, sales tax. I mean, that's what funds your city.
Yes.
And, the number of people that are moving there. If you're trying to recruit some kind of industry, any kind of industry, they want to know that people are moving there. People aren't moving away. And there are some rural communities that, unfortunately, people are leaving.
Yeah.
There's no opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this huge influx in Sherman and in Denison. And, that's the developers come in first. They understand the system, how it works. They were actually out there before the TI and Global Wafers was announced. But there are ways for those developers who are very sharp to hear about it.
Yeah.
Because like TI was getting quotes from different vendors for some of their work before they ever announced the plant. And, Dallas is big, but it's pretty small when it comes to keeping secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they use the same vendors.
Well, they're just good brokers and good developers. They've got contacts.
Yep.
And they hear.
Yeah. I'm sure they start buying up land, and
Exactly.
which raises the land value. And
Oh, it's, home values in Sherman, Denison. I don't know if it's happened in Durant, but, 5 years ago, you could build a home for $85 to $95 a square foot. Now it's $220.
yeah.
Now that's a combination of things, not just the growth, but supply and demand is part of it.
Yep.
But inflation and the interest rates were so low, people were just going crazy.
Yes.
Houses. And that interest rate definitely slowed that down.
Yeah.
But just, I know between Sherman and Denison, just on our normal development, the city, our planning department, developers that had taken down property and got it entitled, another 10,000 homes. Sherman's probably double or triple that.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's totally changed.
Yeah. So, I mean, going from, like you said, 80 to 90 a square foot to 220, I mean, that's substantial.
Right.
How do you as a community grows like that, what are some of the challenges that it faces?
Infrastructure, water and sewer.
Okay.
Denison's 152 years old. So we have some water and sewer lines that are over 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a capacity at your water plant, your sewer plant, and you're just, have nominal growth, a little growth over the years, year over year. Everything's pretty smooth, nothing to get crazy about.
Yeah.
And then within 2 or 3 years, you're like, we're maxed out on water and sewer. Now, we're not, but obviously you can tell that in 2 or 3 years it could be.
Yeah. And that would be a big problem.
And you can't raise the money, if you will, and add to your water and sewer capabilities in 2 or 3 years. You got to be way out in front of it.
That's right.
Which we were and we are. We're building a huge pump station over by the dam on Texoma.
Okay.
It'll do 50 million gallons of water. We're currently, I think our capacity right now is about 12 million gallons a day, and we're using about 7 of that. So we had that 5 or 6 million. But you have a drought like we had last summer.
That's not, 5 or 6 million gallons of water. Daily. That's,
that can go pretty fast.
It can.
You have a drought, which we had last summer for 2 months, and it bumped right up to that.
Yeah. And so you pull your water straight out of Texoma?
Right.
Okay.
We've got water rights out of Texoma that'll last us for a long, long time.
Yeah.
They're suffering south of us. There's going to be towns that aren't going to have any water.
Yeah.
There's Salina, fastest growing city in the United States. Yeah, just right down the road. And they're going to have a lot of water.
Yeah. And where do they get their water?
They try to, I don't know where Salina's going to get theirs, but, we just built a lake and opened it a couple of years ago, Boat Ark, over by Bonham.
Okay. Yep.
For a group of communities down around McKinney.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just reading a story this morning about another lake not too far from there, southeast of Paris.
Yeah.
That 60,000 acre lake that they're trying to get through. But of course, the locals, if you got land over there, you don't want it. So they got to go through all that.
Yeah.
But it would be simply for water supply for North Dallas.
Yeah. Man. Yeah.
So we're great. We're in great position.
Yeah. And what's the life of what's the life of a lake like Texoma? Like, how do you even think about that?
No. I grew up on Texoma, and it has silted in. I went on the north side of Texoma because I lived in Ada, so that was the closest point. But Cumberland Cove was a little marina. That whole part of the lake now is all silted in. Mm-hmm. Huge part of the lake. Got willow trees, and it's that deep.
Yeah.
You barely get through there to get up into the Ouachita, and you can still do that. But back in the day, it was just wide open. Yeah. Fully silted in.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything, it's going to silt in at some point.
It's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
It's a big hole.
It is. It's a big hole. Yes. Yeah. I don't know how deep Texoma is, but it's a huge lake.
The main river, the Red River Channel, it's probably around 80. But once you kind of get out of the channel, it jumps up to 50, and then it's 30s. It's not like Ozark Lakes where they're 300 feet deep. Yeah. Broken Bow's 300 feet deep at the dam.
My goodness.
It's a unique, but not these flatland lakes like Texoma. Yeah. I would call them relatively shallow.
Yeah. Yeah. 300 feet. That's
deep.
That's deep. Yeah. Well, so I know you've been working with us here at Gaddis Premier for how long?
16, 17 years.
Okay. Well, you have any complaints or anything you really want to just get off your chest?
I have no complaints. It's a simple, easy.
Okay, that's a good answer. Yeah. So we're just going to cut the podcast.
No complaint. We love our advisor, Teresa.
Yes.
She's part of the family.
She is wonderful.
And so she handles it, and we get together maybe once a year and go over stuff. She's got it absolutely knocked out. No problems whatsoever. It's always just, it's a very good relationship.
Yeah.
We're very happy to have it.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I know we haven't talked about that before we got on this podcast. So
it's okay.
But I did let everybody know that if his answer was negative, that we could cut it and, try again.
It's all positive.
Yeah. Good.
She's just went off on my board. She served on the city council for 6 years, and then she came onto the Denison Development Alliance board, and she still had a couple of years to go on that, but then she ran again for city council and was elected. Yeah, pretty much a landslide. So
yeah, that's awesome.
The whole key to any community is the volunteer leadership.
Yeah. So do you specifically target leaders like that?
Yes. You have to be on the lookout all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You see people, there's all kind of things you get involved with, like United Way and, the chamber. And you see emerging leaders, and you've got to go get them. It's not like people are running around like, man, I really want to be on the city council. There's really no fun in that. You've got to be a special person to come with no agenda and just do it because you love the city and you can contribute to the process.
Yeah.
And actually, I've almost been there 25 years. June will be my 25th. But I'm there because of the volunteer leadership, the mayors and the city councils and the board members that I've had are the reason why communities like Denison are successful.
Yeah.
Because they hire good people. They take care of the people that, the professional people, but they set all the policy. And back to what I was saying, when you get ready to do a deal, it involves tax abatements and everything to make the deal happen. You need to be able to know that your city council or your college board and all those people are involved in the tax abatement anyway, that when I talk to you and say, I'm going to ask for a 50% tax abatement for 10 years, that I'm 90% sure that that's going to be accepted.
Yeah.
And I've never had one of those voted down in the 24 years I've been there.
Yeah.
Because people that I deal with, they want to know they're dealing with a decision maker, and then I've got to deliver.
Yeah.
I can make offers, but it's still got to be approved.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just so wise. So how have you gone about just identifying who those leaders are in those volunteer positions?
Just by networking. If there's something going on, I'm usually there. Something, volunteer groups, like I said, United Way board and all those. We got multiple boards with several foundations in Denison, and just being out and about, listening to people, talking to people, like, who's that guy, who's that lady, what's she do?
Yeah.
Networking within the leadership that's already in place, because most of them grew up in Denison.
Yeah.
So they know people. So it's just been, the leadership has been everything.
Yeah.
The volunteer leadership.
Yeah. I think that's so key. Yeah. Leadership is key.
That's I've been there, probably not a record for economic developers, but typically it's a 5 to 6 year gig. And then you got to move on.
Why is that?
Well, it's called political capital. A group of people hire you and you work and work and work, but as you can't do anything without somebody getting sideways or upset.
Yes.
Like, oh, we didn't want that deal, or we didn't want to do it that way.
Yep.
And so over time, in some communities, you'll lose this volunteer or this city council person's support, and you'll lose another one. And then at some point in your career, you go, you know what? I've done what I can do here. I'm going to have to go somewhere else, start all over.
Yeah. So, how have you maintained that, though?
It's just the quality of the people.
Yeah.
that live in Denison that have stepped up over the years to lead.
Yeah.
And then, my job is to establish my credibility. And it's not just me. I have staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've had great staff members. And you build a program, you understand what it takes to be successful. And then you train your volunteers and you keep them involved. You keep them, a lot of stuff is confidential, but
Of course.
the stuff that's not, you keep everybody connected and involved like they're part of it because they are.
Yeah. How do you train your volunteers?
Well, for example, when we have new city council persons that are elected, we send them a nice letter, and we've got some documents, some flyers and brochures about what economic development is.
Yeah.
And then we have our program of work of what we do. And we invite them to come to the office, and we have probably an hour and a half or 2 hours going over what we do every day and what we have done and what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And just make that connection.
Yeah. And city council's that's all elected.
Yes.
But if you identify someone that you think would be a good person for city council, I'm sure you
Absolutely
have a conversation. I was going to use the word solicit, but that's probably wrong. Like encourage them.
You encourage them because a lot of the people that served on the council never thought they had no interest in serving on the council.
Yeah.
But they're a good person, and you know that they love the city.
Yeah.
And they would do anything. And it's like, I just want to let you know that we got a council position that's coming open. And it's not just me. There's other leaders in the community.
Sure. But
you've got to encourage people to take it on. It is not that rewarding.
Yeah. No. And do you have is there like a group of leaders in Denison that identify leaders, encourage people?
Well, yeah. You got the chamber board. They're all leaders. You got my board. You got the city council board. So that network is, 2025, I actually have a different board. We have a private nonprofit foundation, the Denison Development Foundation. That board, I've got 27 people.
Okay.
So that's a good network. Not too many economic developers have a second board like that. So I got the private board, which is the DDA, and it's funded by a half-cent sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
And then this foundation is funded by real estate that we've bought or leased and sold, and we make our own money. So it's not as restricted as the sales tax money. So we can buy, build, own, loan, whatever we need to do to go with the public money to make a deal happen. And I've got an opportunity to have 20, 25 more people involved in the process. So it's a really unique thing to have, and glad we have it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just find that fascinating. Even just the way municipalities work, because we all need to be aligned in our interests, for the health of our community.
Yes.
And trying to get that alignment sometimes is difficult.
It typically happens in rural communities, and Denison's a rural community.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happened 35, 40 years ago before I came there. A couple of people got on the council. They had a city manager. This is what I'm told by guys that are still there. And it was just total disarray. And I call that, when a city makes a change, it's when they go through what I call a near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a case of that.
Yeah.
No one wanted to be on the council. You couldn't convince them to be on the council because you had two radical people that were just goofy, I would say.
Yeah.
And so then things start falling off, and then finally some leadership in the community goes over and says, hey, you're going to run for council, and you're going to run for council, and we're going to get you on the council, and you're going to turn this thing around. And we're going to get quality people.
Yeah.
From that day on, at least in Denison, that group of people that love Denison just always are looking to make sure somebody runs.
Yeah.
And
I'm curious who those people are.
Well, they're
not names, but more just positionally. Like, are they businessmen and women?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Educators,
Yeah.
And it's people that have served typically. And, over the years, there's, they term out at 6 years, but they still love the city. And so they're on the lookout. They know what it takes.
Yeah. Well, my wheels are turning. I don't know if they're a good turn or a bad turn. But yeah, I love all the stuff you're sharing. Even trying to take it in and think about like how, what are things we can do, to just better our community, right? To get that alignment of leadership, to really move the community forward in a positive direction.
You have to have great volunteers, and that usually translates into hiring great staff.
Yeah.
And keeping those staff members there, and, being smart about what you need to do as a community. First thing I did was get about 150 people together in 2001, and we did a one-day planning session, did a SWOT analysis, if you're familiar with that.
I am, yeah.
Pretty simple process to do that, but it's very effective. And we came up with 20 priorities at that time.
Yeah, and how'd you do a SWOT with 150 people?
It's easy.
It's easy.
Yeah, you take 10 people in a group, and you say, write down 5 things that you would like to see in Denison. Everybody does that. After that's over, you take that group of 10 people.
Those are your opportunities, right?
Well, you have to do one for each section.
Yep.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities.
Threats.
But, so you do that first. So you've got 5, everybody's got 5, so you got 50. Then you basically put them on the table, and then there's a lot of duplicates. And so you narrow it down to the top 5.
Yeah.
Each table would do that on every segment of strength. And then when it's all said and done, again, it's simple. And it's networking, and it's an amazing, simple process.
Yeah.
So we came up with about 20 priorities, which back then was very easy.
Yeah.
We wanted a new high school. We want to redevelop Main Street, need more industrial property. We need to fill up our industrial buildings. We needed a new hospital. Did I already say that? And then some smaller stuff. But we didn't have any hotels. We had 1 or 2. But all the hotels were in Sherman, so any kind of tourist or any events that we had, we didn't capture that.
Yeah. So
about 2 years ago, we incrementally, I have an annual economic development summit. It's a half-day deal. We have 250 people come to that. And so we go over different aspects of what we do and have the city go over some of their projects and keep the public informed. But we basically, all of those items we accomplished, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then about 2 years ago, we did the same thing and came up with a new list. Number 1 on the list was infrastructure. Ability to fund and build and prepare our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because of the growth that we were actually seeing then.
Yeah. Yeah, I love. So the Economic Development Summit, is that through Denison Development Foundation?
No, the DDA.
DDA. So you have DDF and DDA.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We, my wife and I, after we graduated from OSU, we went to work in the oil and gas industry.
There you go.
And I a couple years in one job, transitioned to another job, and I ended up doing it's called stakeholder engagement, which was public relations. But a lot of my job was with economic development alliances.
Oh yeah.
In the towns that we operated in. And I don't know why I never thought about this, but we always would go to their annual summits, and we would have either like a little table or something. And obviously working for a big oil and gas company, we were, promoting what we do and how we benefit the economy and people's lives. But I think it's very important.
It works.
Yeah. So have you seen a lot of leadership change throughout your tenure in Denison? Or have the leaders kind of stayed the same?
Well, I think you're asking me, have I seen a philosophy in the leadership?
No. So
I've seen a lot of leadership change because they mayors can 6 years.
Yes.
I mean, all these council, and I've been there a long time, so they term out.
Yep.
And then in Teresa's case, she came back.
Yep.
And there's been a couple of those, but most people get 6 years of it and they're like, hey, I've done my job.
Yeah. Well, the crux of my question is, so you took 150 people through SWOT analysis, and you sort of determined, okay, these are the things that people want to see in Denison. And then you actually did it, which I think is fantastic.
Right. But it takes, the key is it takes a long time.
Exactly.
And you have to let the volunteers know that. You're like, oh, we're going to do all this stuff. Okay, well, be prepared. It could take 20 years to get there.
Yes.
And you have to manage your expectations because economic development is slow.
Yes.
Slow, methodical.
Yeah,
Slow.
exactly. Yeah, and I think so that was sort of the genesis of my question is it takes a long time.
It takes a long time.
And so have you been the consistent driver behind that? Was there a community around you that was consistently moving the plan that you had built forward because I know all the volunteer leaders are changing.
No, I guess our office, not just me, I've got really had great staff people, but our office is the consistent keeper of the plan.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And not all the things that are on the plan were we were directly responsible for, but like the hospital. I mean, we didn't play a big role in the hospital project.
Yeah.
But a group of volunteers did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fascinating. I've been in Durant 8 years now.
Oh yeah.
We moved back right before my son was born. And so that's kind of the milestone. I just had to think about how old my son is and how long I've been in Durant. So just the whole idea so I took a leadership class in Durant, leadership Durant,
right.
Put on by the chamber.
Yeah. And
out of that came, a friend of mine and we started a nonprofit called Durant Trails and Open Space. And we've done, we tried to partner with the city on several things. And we've actually just successfully got a bridge built across Chuckwaw, partnering with the city on an ODOT grant.
Good.
And so the idea of how organizations can partner with municipalities to move a community forward. And I know there's been a lot of planning in Durant's history, but even, and I'm a little out of touch with where things are now, but just the idea of how do you plan and then successfully execute a plan over the course of 20 or 30 years, it's a monumental thing.
Yes, it is. But again, you got to write it down.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just write it down.
Yes.
It may seem super far-fetched, but write it down.
Yeah.
And then keep bringing it up year after year.
Yep.
Hey, we got this done, but we don't have this yet, but we're working on it. And just keep it up and people keep connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's incredible. Well, Tony, I really have enjoyed our conversation.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on.
You're so welcome.
Yep. And again, if you like this, please like and subscribe. And thanks for joining our podcast.